So I was practicing chiropractic in Newport Beach, California in 1999 when one of my patients handed me a book called Frogs and the Princess, and he said, I think you'll enjoy it. And I did. And I was looking for a second career, and people were coming to me with things like depression and anxiety and phobias, and I had no idea why, because it says chiropractor on the note. And they said, no, I want you to fix it. And I did my best, and they got better, and I have no idea why. I knew that I didn't know what I was doing. They wouldn't go elsewhere. I just wanted them to go away. And then I read this book, and I said, these guys are practical. This is my next career, and it has been ever since. And I learned very quickly that phobias and depression and anxiety and things like that, that's like the first 5 minutes, and then you get on to the difficult stuff, things like anorexia and addiction and so on. And I thought the world was going to be a path my door. It hasn't happened yet. But we're making progress. Some years later, Scott referred a family member to me with a very severe case of PTSD. I said, let me at it. It's simple. And that's when he started pushing me to develop a program that we could take to a larger market. So, visual kinesthetic dissociation was first written about in this book, which has a copyright date of 1985, a few seconds ago. So we're not talking about anything new. This stuff's been around for 30 years, and it just has not gotten to people that need yet. So I didn't invent anything, I didn't develop anything. I'm just trying to get these two groups together. So, a little background. John Grinder and Richard Bandler were headed south on Highway 9 toward Santa Cruz on the way to their Thursday night group therapy session. And Richard was still a smoker at the time. He comes out of the convenience store after purchasing cigarettes, laughing uncontrollably. He says, John, what in the world is up with people? They say the stupidest things. I see what you're saying. How do you see what someone's saying? Don't you hear what someone's saying? John says, I feel your pain. Now these are two very bright guys, and they're chatting on their way south, and they came to the conclusion that the software of the human brain is coded as a function of sensory input. In other words, our programs are written in pictures, sounds, feelings, smells, and tastes. Of course, they had to be academic, so they called these modalities visual kinesthetic. I almost forgot my favorite one, auditory, kinesthetic, and olfactory. And if you develop an interest in NLP, you'll see this expression over and over. Pictures are in the back in the occipital lobes, sounds are over inside in the temporal lobes, feelings are up in the top, smells and tastes are in the front. That's all there is. Anything else is a rationalization. So, they get to their Thursday night group therapy session, stop at the convenience store, spend the last $1.50 they have on a few pieces of construction paper, yellow, green, blue, tear them up in pieces. The people that describe themselves in auditory terms get a yellow piece of paper. We could have done this today, but we didn't have time. We have an olfactory person here. You guys are unusual. There's not very many people whose primary modality is olfactory. They put all the yellows together and all the greens together, all the blues together. It's old home week, everybody loves everybody else. They mix the groups up and fights break out. They said we're onto something. The next day Richard went to Europe on business, and John says he was gone 10 days, Richard says he was gone 30. Who cares? They get back together, they meet at the airport, and the one looks at the other one and says, have you noticed? And the other one says, how in the hell did the entire human race miss this for all these thousands of years? The visual people look up a lot. The auditory people look left and right a lot. The kinesthetic people look down a lot. That's an eyeball. And that's another eyeball. This is visual. This is kinesthetic. This is auditory. Think of a phone number. What did you do just then? Chances are pretty good you did one of two things. You either looked up and saw a picture and went 720-422-84. Yeah, that's my phone number. Or you heard an audio tape and thought about what you heard. No one is exempt from this. I often get to the end of one of these things and then someone says, My brain just doesn't work that way. And I say, tell me a phone number, and they do, and they've done one of these two things. So, regardless of how much training or skill or whatever, this is something we are never going to get away from. This is important if you work with other people, because you can say to the person, make yourself feel bad now, and you can watch what they do. And you've got a map into that program. And then you can start mixing it up. And like any machine assembled improperly, it will not work like it used to. Guaranteed. You can scramble people's strategies, and you can do it in a couple of minutes. And then the problem's gone, and it doesn't come back. You don't have to spend years in psychoanalysis. And CBT works, but it takes a long time. In psychoanalysis, we say, how do you feel about that? In CBT, we say, why do you feel bad? In NLP, we say, how do you make yourself feel bad? They go, and they do it. And then you say, stop doing that. So,
Can we ask a question?
absolutely.
I kind of get why visual people would look up, audio people would look right to left, kinesthetic people, why?
Because this is where we feel things.
Okay, gotcha.
Do you know there are adult humans that believe that the heart is the center of emotion? No. Our transplant feel the same.
Yeah.
But because it seems like it's happening here, the auditory people are looking toward their temporal lobes. The visual people, it seems like they're trying to look back at their occipital lobes. Oh, and downright important. You ever hear the expression down left important? Or upright important? Or left right? You see the person look down to the right, something important just happened.
Yeah.
This stuff is coded in our language. It's everywhere. You can't get away from it. And after a while, you just want to go home and turn on the TV because, oh, it's everywhere. So, oh, and by the way, if anybody asks you what NLP is, and you don't really want to explain it, you just want it to go away, you give them the dictionary definition, the study of structure of subjective experience, and they go into trance and they walk away. It's great. It's fun. It's just a ride. You know, the stuff that they built into the language, it's really cool. So, time goes by, and one of the geniuses in the neighborhood says, oh, you boys think you're so smart, why don't you do something about phobias? And they said, okay. But they did something unusual. They didn't study the problem. Richard ran an ad in the paper, you know, San Jose Chronicle or whatever it was. And he says he found 200 people. John says he found 2. Who cares? So you had a phobia and you got over it. What did you do? Every single person puts their hand to their forehead. Richard writes down hand to forehead, possibly optional. And then they go, I looked at myself. Does anyone know what this is called? When you say, I looked at myself? When I see my hands, they're here. They're not over there. Well, most days, because most days I'm associated. But this is called disassociated when I see myself over there in the picture. So they went, oh, that's how you get over a phobia. You step out of the picture. And it works. Hey, I can walk backward and talk about my problems and just watch them go away.
It works? That worked?
That's a recent invention. See, once you understand this stuff, you can mix it all up. So, dissociation didn't work with everybody. At that time, there were a whole lot of Vietnam vets hanging around Northern California. Some of them had been tunnel rats, and some of them were really messed up. So, in this case, we get the person stepped out of the picture, they still feel bad. Okay, step out of yourself. Watch yourself watching the picture. If that doesn't work, maybe it's because they're imagining what they heard. Have them turn down the volume. Have them put a glass wall between. Does this sound insane? You know, feeling bad about things that happened 30 years ago is also insane. So we got an insane problem and an insane solution. Step out of yourself. Watch yourself watching yourself. Give that person the tools he needs in order to be okay with that. And when that process is complete and not before, have the person step back into himself. How does that feel? Better. The person stands up straighter. They've got color in their cheeks.
the pupillary dilatation is going away. You know, they're coming out of their self-imposed trance, which involves lots of activity in the limbic system and not very much in the prefrontal cortex. The focus of neuronal activity has moved to the prefrontal cortex, hence the hand to the forehead. It feels good, doesn't it, when that stuff moves up? And it doesn't move back. Because now I have an objective understanding of what I went through. Don't really care about it anymore. Now the person can step back into that real-time motion picture and go, I can't believe I'm okay with this.